Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special FighterHeart Podcast episode. I am Joe Rizzo.
I'm Ryan Costello.
And we are sitting here with the founder, the godfather of FighterHeart, Ed Kraemer, right? That's how I say your last name?
Ed Kraemer is okay, yeah.
All right, beautiful, Ed. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me here.
Yeah, you flew in just for this.
I flew in exactly for this morning from Miami to JFK.
Yes. So everyone, Ed right here is the whole reason that we're even able to do this podcast. So thank you, Ed, for letting us do this. We'd love to hear about you, go into your story, and then go from there. How did we get here? Start off, basically, get on a timeline.
Okay, well, I'm very excited to be here. Actually, my very first podcast or interview or anything similar, not done that before. And yes, I mean, it's a pleasure, to reach this stage actually where we do have these podcast series, right? Now, I have founded the company in March this year, 2022. And we have started working with a couple of people, agencies, in April, May, to build the company, to build the website, to build the web store, to build the interview series, to plan out a strategy for that. And now we're sitting here in October, and we've already published 12 stories.
13.
Very, very...
13.
13?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 13. We have several podcasts, right? One published already. The next one's in line already. And it's very, very exciting to see that grow. And I'm, very happy to be at this stage. And I want to say a thank you to everybody involved. Also you guys, of course.
It's a love fest. We're all thankful for each other. So I know you grew up. Let's start off. You grew up in Romania, right? You were born in Romania.
Yes.
Communism, right? Communist.
Yes.
Yeah. So what was that like, and what's your earliest memories from then, and what happened when you left there?
Well, of course, being born in Romania, having grown up 9 years there, it's something that maybe not everybody here has an imagination how that looks like, right? Back then, communism, so it was very tough regime, so you weren't allowed to travel anywhere. People were held, to be all the same, more or less, right? But for me, to be honest, as a child, I didn't have a bad childhood. It was very nice, I had a good parents' house, we had family life and everything. But it wasn't a luxury, like in the West, can live in really luxury. There it was more a very decent level.
Like middle class.
No, not well. Depends what you define as a middle class. So the problem in basically all communist countries is that the system just doesn't work over time, and the society gets worse and worse, especially on the things you can have or you can, let's say, buy or consume. As an example, my father had to order a car in advance, and he had to wait for 10 years until he got a car. Okay,
wow.
So
10-year waiting list.
and
for
10-year waiting, and then of course it was much, much more expensive than any one of you can imagine, right? In terms of, let's say, paying 10 times a yearly salary, okay, for a car, okay. And before that, he waited about 10 years to have a motorcycle, right? So
You have to be very patient.
You have to be very patient, and things just didn't work like here. And there was a lack of everything. So that's why people just saved everything. Today we have a problem in Western societies, people just throwing away too many things. And that doesn't happen there because you needed to use several things again and again and again in different situations. So that was totally different. But it gave me the experience, that life can be different, different from the Western societies where everything was there and you could just buy, consume, throw away. And, I was raised a little bit differently.
So you left. You said when you were 9 years old, you left
Yeah.
Romania, right? Where did you go from there?
So we actually went to Düsseldorf in Germany, Western Germany, based on the fact that my mother fled. So it wasn't normal just to leave the country, so you weren't allowed. But my mother had fled on a trip that she was allowed to go because she had a certain position in a party there, and then she fled from Budapest to Vienna to Düsseldorf. Okay, in a very secret way.
And she's by herself. She
By herself,
Yeah.
she was followed by security guys from the Securitate. That's the way they call them there. But she succeeded in getting to Düsseldorf, very strange ways. But then we basically, what we did, we filed, to be able to follow her. So we had to wait for 2 years. We had to pay a lot of money to different people so to get a passport and to be able to leave 2 years later. Okay, and that's when we arrived in Düsseldorf, Germany in 1980.
And do you have any siblings?
Yes, I have an older brother who's 1 year older.
So it was just you, your brother, and your dad
Exactly, yes.
for a couple years, and then you met your mom again.
Exactly, yes.
So how old? So at that time you're what, 11? 11 years
9,
old?
yes.
Oh, you left at 9. Yeah. So you get to Germany. Is that adjustment for you? Do you remember?
Yes, of course, it was a big adjustment. Although we were raised speaking German, so the language was there, which is very, very helpful, of course. But we did speak a different German, and you arrive there within 9-year-old kids, and you have a totally different behavior. So they were like picking on you on different things. But all in all, it was just very okay. I fit in pretty well. I started to play soccer because soccer has been my passion all the time, and through sports you get accustomed and you get into a group, and everything's more or less fine.
So you started playing soccer in school for the school team?
No, in Germany you don't play for school teams. You have clubs, at the side of the school, and so you just join a club, and there are players of all ages playing.
Were you thinking of like eventually going pro? Was that in the back of your mind?
Not really, to be honest.
No, it was for fun more.
Yeah, well, no, it was for competition, but I've never felt to be as good, to just even dream of being a pro.
So, walk us through what happened. You go through high school. You go through grade school and then into high school.
Yes, exactly. So I go to elementary school, 3rd grade, 4th grade, then you advance to sort of a high school, but it's in 3 different spaces in Germany. So if I went to a gymnasium, they call it, where you finish with your high school diploma after 13 years. I've had a great childhood, so to say. I did a lot of sports, I learned, my grades were okay. Everything went pretty easy, actually. So I never had really a tough time to follow and school and to have good grades. So I spent my junior high school year in the USA, in Maine. That was a very helpful in
How did that happen,
learning
though?
some English.
How did that come about? How did you just decide to come to America to go to Maine?
Actually, my brother is a year older and went sort of 1 year ahead in the class, and he had the idea to do that. And he basically, the year before I went, he was there, and he paved the road, so to say, for me to go. And I did the same, and I didn't, of course, regret it. So it was a great time up there in Maine. Cold winters.
No one says that. Really. It's fun up there in Maine.
No, it is. I really had a great time. A huge experience, just going away from home at the age of 16, all by yourself. It was really great.
Did you already speak English? Were you learning English back home?
Yes. So we learned English from 5th grade in Germany. So I was quite okay in that, but of course it's totally different if you arrive. And so when I left, my English was quite a bit better.
Yeah, I could imagine. Did you have a question?
No, I was
I
just.
heard you take a breath.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, was it different from Germany? Was it like a culture shock when you were there, or? Like
Anything you didn't expect?
Well, everything was different. So I mean, the size was different. I remember
Culture.
I was picked up at the airport in Portland, Maine, right? So we drove the highways, and the highways are like 3 times as wide. Yeah, it's in Germany, and there's like in between there's so much grass from one side to the other, and the cars are much bigger, and so everything was much different. But I really sucked it in. I was eager to have that experience and to learn from that. And that's what happened basically all those 11 months I stayed.
So 11 months you were in school in Maine.
Yeah.
Then you go back to Dusseldorf.
Yeah.
Where did you do from there? So like, did you go to university or college?
Yeah, so I went back to school. I finished high school with Abitur. It's called the high school diploma there. And then I did a year of civil service. So in Germany, back at the time, you either needed to go to the military service or you did civil service, which was 15 months. I did a service called Meals on Wheels, plus that was in the before noon, and afternoon I did help elderly people with their household, with shopping for them, with different things.
So every resident has to do this?
Every male resident had to do that when after getting out of school.
Not now though. Do they still do that?
No, they stopped doing that.
Yeah, it's like kind of like the draft, right? Like for
so
us,
it's a mandatory draft.
Yeah,
and now they stopped it. Now they just pay the people to come to military.
So Meals on Wheels is you feed the homeless, basically?
No, it wasn't the homeless. So more or less elderly people who lived by themselves, and it just didn't have the capacity, to cook for themselves every day or to go shopping for themselves. So it was really elderly people that we helped.
Cool. So how long did you do that for?
15 months.
15 months.
And,
okay.
Then I wanted to go to university. I tore my ACL, right? Crossing ligament in my knee, which stopped me. Let's say for a year. I mean, you can go, of course, even if you have that injury. But it just happened in September when you're just on board. I just didn't want to travel because I decided to go to Bayreuth, which is a city about 400 miles away from the south. Just didn't want to do that move, with without being able to walk properly.
Yeah.
And
So
then the first weeks and months in university on crunches and stuff, I didn't want to do that. That's why I stayed at home for another year with my parents, and then started university a year later.
So when you tore your ACL, I hear a lot of athletes talk about when they tear their ACL, they hear a pop or they feel it. Did you go through that?
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
You heard a pop?
I heard it and I felt it. It was actually the strongest pain that I have encountered that far. It was hell, for about a minute. It happened during soccer training. I was sliding and playing a ball, and I got stuck in the grass with my studs and just turned over my knee. And that was it. I had horrible pain for about, let's say, a minute or two possibly. And then it got better, and I just I walked away by myself.
Really?
Yeah. Walking like you walk.
Limp.
I limped, more than I walked. But then, next day I went to the doctor, and then I think the day after I went to hospital.
You didn't even go to the doctor right after it happened?
You went home?
No, I don't know. There was the times back then, Nowadays you probably go directly to hospital.
Yeah.
And the doctor was special too, He after I had the surgery, he told me to walk on crutches for 3 months. So I did not step on that foot for 3 months, which you don't do that anymore, right? Yeah. And then after 3 months, my foot was like this thin, like my arm here.
Yeah, you overcompensate, right? Because you don't even
my
use
shoulders
it.
were like this, like Hulk's shoulders.
Yeah.
walking on those crunches. But then I recovered pretty quickly. That went all well, and I started playing soccer again after 5 months. So it was very nice.
And no pain or anything after that?
Of course. Actually, I still feel my left knee being sort of weaker than my right knee. Okay, and especially the first couple of years, I really felt it, but it wasn't keeping me from doing sports or playing anything. So it was not too bad.
Oh, good. So you continued to play soccer after you tore your ACL?
Of course.
Yeah. How about job-wise? Did you have a career path you were looking towards at this point?
Well, not really. I mean, I went to university then and studied business administration, finance, and marketing. I didn't really have a clue where to end up until till pretty much late in the studies. In between, I was very much focused on doing as much sports as possible. So I played soccer, I played basketball a lot. I started running. In the middle of my studies, more or less, at the age of 25, I ran the Berlin Marathon, and that was a very good experience.
That's 26 miles too, just like our marathons.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
You've always been active. You've always been
active. Yeah.
Sports.
So I've everything came pretty easy for me. Then accidents happen, like the ACL. You fight back. Then running the marathon. Normally you prepare well. I didn't have the opportunity though to prepare well, and then arriving in Berlin, my friend of mine picked me up, and we haven't seen each other for a long time, so we decided to go out, and we went out until 4 a.m. and had a few beers, which wasn't really good, because then after about 30 kilometers, pain struck in, and my ligaments started really to hurt a lot. And so last 10 kilometers, I was more limping and,
but you had to finish.
Limping, right? Walking, I took 2 massages in between. It was hell. It was, again, up to that time, one of the worst pains to, feel. But I knew I was gonna finish, even if I crawled over the finish line. Okay,
you had no choice.
No choice. So, and that's what I did. Time was still okay until kilometer 30. I was in a very, very good time, but later after all, it wasn't too good. But I finished it. Okay,
that's what matters.
That's what matters. Okay.
So where, I guess, in timeline, like, as you were passionate in sports, you went to university for business administration. What was the aha moment to start Camp for Hers? Like, where did that?
Oh, that came a bit later. So I came out of university, with the idea then of going into sports. Okay, so sports has been on my mind. So I went to a German sports channel, DSF, and worked in sales there. Fantastic team. So we had a really great time for about 2.5 years. Then I went on to CNN International in Frankfurt. And then now coming towards sort of more to the start of Camp for Hers. I went to join the team that that sold the merchandising rights for the FIFA World Cup 2006. That was near Munich in Unterföhring. So I moved back to Munich and actually moved to Ismaning, just outside of Munich, working for the FIFA World Cup 2006, which is a once in a lifetime opportunity. So I was so proud, and I was really amazed by that opportunity. We had a great team and a great time there. So really nothing to complain about. And that's actually at the end of that term after the World Cup, which was a very great experience by itself. I've seen all the German games live in the stadium. Fantastic. So I read a magazine called 11 Freunde, 11 Friends, soccer magazine, and there's an article about a team who comes back from being behind a lot, being a big underdog team, and wins the game. And the author, the journalist, describes that in a very nice way. and he used the term FighterHeart. Okay, FighterHeart translates into fighter heart, and it's a very strong word. And I thought, wow, this is great, you know. So I think in terms of marketing, I mean, you can do more than just use it in a journalist article. So I looked it up, and there wasn't much more, to be honest. So, you know, actually the first day I reserved several domains on that term, and I looked up the trademark register, and there was nothing there. So I spoke with the lawyer, you know, to register the trademark FighterHeart. So that took a few days, but then we did it. And that's how it basically started.
What did you have in mind for it at business-wise at this point? Did you want it to be...
Well, to be honest, in the first days, I didn't have very specific ideas. I just thought you have to do something because it's such a great term. And then, you know, after thinking about it, the idea came up to have a website, built from content that you create, from stories where people show this fighter heart, in sports. That was, of course, the first idea, but also now I think beyond sports, in everyday life, every day people have big challenges, big adversities that they face, that they overcome. And those stories are great. They are worth being told. And there's a lot to learn from these people to see how they have overcome these adversities. And that was the initial idea that was pretty quickly then built. And we started the website. We started to interview people, to write stories. We started a web store that has been then the monetization of this idea, to sell apparel, because I think everybody wearing some shirt with FighterHeart gives yourself a motivation in everyday life to overcome your own challenges. So we did all of that. Social media was just starting back then.
This is what, like 06, 07?
That was 06, yes.
Yeah.
So until we really started, it was 2007.
Mm-hmm.
And we had at some point in 2008, 2009, we had 10,000 followers on Facebook.
That's a lot back then.
That was back then a lot. Even nowadays, not bad. And so that was, we were selling hundreds, thousands of shirts. And it was, we had a good path. But not good enough. So, things I had planned for more. I tried to build that really big, and I was even decided to quit my job in 2008, which was a very good job I had at a media company, just to build the company itself, to find some partners to go along. And things just didn't develop, So that was very, very disappointing at the time. So I have talked with hundreds of companies, hundreds of investors, and it just didn't work, Mm-hmm. So, it's, you question yourself, you question the concept, you question everything. So I started basically, trying different things. And then, as things happen, my first daughter was born in 2010. So, 2 years after I had quit my job, I was, besides building the company, I was working as a sales and marketing consultant. So that, brought in some money to the household, but, it wasn't really great, because every euro or Deutschmark back then that came in. No, it was euro. Sorry. Deutschmark is longer ago. So every euro that came in, more or less, I spent in trying to build FighterHeart. So after a while, after my daughter had turned 1 year and a little more, I just needed to decide, to make a decision because I didn't want to just have live on the edge, turning every penny around 10 times,
paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah. So because I knew I could probably get a decently paid job or a well-paid job pretty easily, and then we'd have a much more comfortable life, and my wife, of course, wasn't very happy, living on the edge, so to say. So, and also we wanted to have a second kid, and we wanted to buy a house, to live in, and so on and so on. So I made a tough decision to drop it, or let's say to put it asleep, the project, and take on a regular job, and try to build it on the side, But of course, if you get into a well-paid job in sales, it doesn't leave a lot of time to build something on the side. So it just didn't happen.
Plus, you're making the commission. You want to keep going.
Of course.
You don't want to stop the momentum.
Of course. So basically, I joined a company in late 2011, November 2011. That's funny because now we're sitting here almost November 2022, right?
Yeah, 11 years later. 12
So
years.
11 years later. And basically last year in November, but we'll come to that in a minute, I made a decision to revive it again. Okay. So basically end of November 2011, I made a decision just to go on a regular job again. And that's when FighterHeart fell asleep. Okay, so a year later we bought a house. We took a high mortgage, so I had to pay off mortgage and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it just didn't leave any space for, building anything on the side.
So it goes on the back burner. You forget about it for a number of years.
Well, I've never forgot about it. I still had a lot of merchandise on stock, right? In exactly stuff we are wearing now, and so I always knew that the time would come when I pick it up again and just give it a second.
So it was always a plan
Definitely,
to do it again.
Always, and now to just wrap it up. Following years, not much happened on that side. I've had many experiences. The marketplaces changed. All the environment, society changed, everything. And basically, last year in November 2021, I have decided to restart it again. And that was quite a change now.
What made you decide to bring it to America, the U.S.?
Well, I wasn't quite happy for quite some time before that with the situation in Germany, political situation, society, and I sort of didn't really like my kids growing up in that kind of an environment. So then I thought, look, the kids have a certain age, they're not really, you don't need to take really close care of them each and every day. Let's just, do it. Let's just do a big change. Start the company again and go somewhere else where the chances are better for success. Okay. And now I've between my junior high school year in Maine and that point, I've worked for a couple of American companies. I've been in the States quite often. As a finance guy, I've followed all the investment side and venture capital. I've invested a lot even back in the dot-com bubble that burst, and later on, also when other companies grew in new technologies. So I followed all of that pretty closely, and I thought, look, this is a perfect momentum now to restart the company. Let's go to Florida. I've seen Florida rising as a capital, not only of capital as they call it, but also as a center for new technologies like blockchain, like crypto, like NFTs. and of course also a lot of venture capital being spent and invested in those technologies. And now the idea has come up, to restart it in this new environment. Especially the social media side has grown a lot, has grown in importance. Many more users worldwide. The interaction on social media is much more intense, and there's much more time spent on social media than at the time when I first started. And of course the environment for investment is in the US in general, but especially then in Florida and Miami area is much better than in Germany. I mean, that's I think that's clear to everyone.
So you saw the opportunity, you guys came. Where do you see, we know it's, we like to highlight the stories of people who have overcome extreme adversity. Where do you see FighterHeart and Camp for Hertz in the immediate future, and then down the line, 5-10 years?
Well, immediate, I'm happy for every step we can take forward, right? And it's really nice to see that, the people we address and the people we interview, they really like the story of the company, and they really like this platform. They like to engage with us and tell their story and share their experiences, right, and their learnings. So I can see this moving on pretty quickly. Of course, we will need some partners on board, some investors on board to really grow this to a larger scale. But we can also, I'm pretty sure we can continue on a level where we grow incrementally from ourselves, and then we take on board the right partners that fit into this environment. And on a longer stage, I see